believers, non-believers, unaffiliated believers, sort of believers, think-em-a-believers, disaffected believers, welcome everyone. You who are the hope for creation, my 9%ers, welcome. My non-university unstudents, welcome to the Uncensored Unprofessor. Can I be honest with you? I don't enjoy spiritual hype. Attending big rallies with some special speaker emotionally revving up the crowd doesn't do it for me. I don't get motivated by cotton candy Christianity. I'd rather have a 5-minute-long savory slice of theological beef than a half-hour-long slathering of sugary emotion. I know, call me a curmudgeon or just call me exhausted by the goo, but I don't enjoy the hype. And building off that, I don't believe spirituality can be, or should be, reduced to invisible things. And I don't just mean miracles or angels or demons. I did a couple episodes on the demonic, number 88, Jesus invading Mordor, and number 62, Satan, demons, and hell. But too many Christians hear the word spirituality, and they evoke images in their heads of prayer vigils, long daily devotionals, church attendance, and the feng shui of their Christian artwork. In fact, on this point, I just published an episode that probes why, in my spirituality, I feel free to enjoy non-religious, secular music, rock music even. I just published that for my frankincense and myrrh members. The reality is, you guys, biblical spirituality is about all of life. Biblical spirituality means living all of life in light of God, in the power of God's Spirit. The Old Testament laws were about everything, not just about your religious attitude. The Old Testament laws touched upon creation care, animal husbandry, the integrity of a courtroom, how to cook food, care for dead bodies. Goodness, we could go on, but my point is that the Old Testament laws were about all of life because a Holy Spirit spirituality is about all of life. And that's because God cares about all of life. Jürgen Moltmann put it beautifully in his book, The Source of Life. He wrote, quote, "When I love God, I love the beauty of bodies, the rhythm of movements, the shining of eyes, the embraces, feelings, scents, the sounds of all this protean creation. When I love you, my God, I want to embrace it all, for I love you with all my senses in the creations of your love. In all the things that encounter me, you are waiting for me. The experience of God deepens the experiences of life. It does not reduce them, for it awakens the unconditional yes to life. The more I love God, the more gladly I exist." What a great way of putting it, Jürgen. God makes us love all of life. God is aware of all of life. And in part, that's because God's love is not some warm, gooey feeling. God's love is action. God's love is earthy, real, gritty, earthy. It gets down in the mud with us without becoming a mudder like all of us. And all of that is introduction for today's topic, why we must fail. It is good for us to fail. It's no fun. It hurts, but it is good for us to fail. And I don't mean that in some Ross Perot, I failed at several financial endeavors before I finally became a multi-billionaire, and you can too, kind of way. That's just more silly crap. And we must fail because, well, I'll tell you momentarily. But first, welcome again to the Uncensored Unprofessor. My name is Ed Rybarczyk. For 25 years, combining adjunct and full-time, I taught theology, philosophy, and church history at college, and my goal in that career of instruction was to try to entice students to embrace a biblical worldview. I invited students to embrace a worldview that participated in a vivid matrix where God is not only creator and judge, but where God is also the source of healing, restoration, justice, growth, and life. God's Alpha and Omega. He's the beginning and end. He's the source and the goal of all of it. So, one way you can help me share a biblical worldview? Mention this podcast to a new believer. Share a URL feed of the show. It's as simple as copy and paste. Share a URL feed to a friend on Instagram. And please, for the love of me, go and rate this show on iTunes. It all helps me to promote the show. Why must we fail? It builds us up. Wait, what'd he say? It builds us up. Now I know that's counterintuitive. We should be in a constant cycle of growth and progress and winning and success, because if we really want to be more, however we define that, we should be in a constant cycle of growth, progress, winning, and success, right? That's the intuitive expectation. But that's not how it works. That's not real life. That's not authentic spirituality. That's not an earthy biblical reality. And wow, as I think it through, just wondering as an aside, did God design finitude so that breakdown, entropy, failure, and collapse were necessary dynamics for growth? Was God's goal growth more than eternal success, infinite delight? Ooh, that's a scary question, isn't it? Does God value growth more than endless delight? Eesh. Well, we better keep moving before things get too deep. Your leg muscles won't get stronger if you perpetually soak in a hot jacuzzi. The jacuzzi would feel good on your legs, but feeling good is not the same as getting stronger. Those muscles, thighs, calves, glutes, they have to be broken down and restructured for them to become useful, to become strong. Your abs won't get firm by enjoying several hours each day in a Barca-lounger. Your stomach would feel good for relaxing in that lounger, but feeling good is not the same as getting stronger. Those gut muscles have to be broken down and restructured for them to become useful, strong. Your brain muscles won't congeal into healthy intellectual patterns if you refuse to read real books, Jerry. Goodness, access to the internet makes possible thousands of encyclopedias worth of knowledge, but people are more stupid today than back when door-to-door salesmen were selling encyclopedias. Your emotional muscles won't grow, won't mature if you only win. Living in melodious harmony feels good, but feeling good is not the same as becoming mature. Winning every match, every contest, every battle feels good, sure, but feeling good is not the same as maturing. You have to lose in order to grow stronger. When's the last time you showed grace in the middle of some conflict? Oh, you guys, we must fail. We must fail. Even God did. Isn't that something? God failed. God set up the universe with contingency, finitude, entropy, all of that woven into its very fabric. And then when he showed up, say, right in the middle of the play, he didn't exempt himself from his own laws. He played by the rules of the game. He suffered, was betrayed. He failed. Pretty miserably, too. Maybe it was the most beautiful failure of all time. I just love, that God has that kind of integrity. He didn't exempt himself from the forces of the universe that he himself established. And I wonder, was he surprised? Did he think to himself, Geez, from heaven I witnessed collapse and breakdown. I saw people experience betrayal and murder from afar, but it's another thing entirely to experience firsthand. I'm just wondering. Me, I'm in a golf league here in Boise. 2 years ago, my partner, Neil, and we played in a flight for 7 to 9 handicappers. This season, me coming off major back surgery, we're in a flight for 10 to 12 handicappers, and I'll tell you, our record is 4-5-1. And I'm not happy about that record. I like to win. I consider myself a winner. I won in high school sports. I won 4 intramural championships in college, in floor hockey, in flag football, basketball, softball. Some athlete you were intramurals. Hey, dude, because you're listening, I'm going to ignore that crack. I won a couple City League softball crowns. Well, last night in league golf, I missed a 9-foot putt for birdie on the second hole. I was hitting my irons as good as I have since surgery, but I wasn't holing out putts. My partner, in this case, Morgan was subbing for Neil. Morgan was playing steady, and we ham and egged our way around the match.
Golf pro you? What does ham and egg mean?
Sorry, I was a bit presumptuous there, wasn't I? Ham and egg means we helped each other, worked together for some ties, some wins. It wasn't just one of us playing our absolute best. Well, we were tied with our opponents after 8 holes. We were tied with the first place team, so we were doing well. On hole number 9, which happened to have been our last hole, I hit a gap wedge up to 4.5 feet. Our competitors both missed birdie putts. One was 13 foot, the other was 7 foot. My partner, Morgan, rolled in a nice par. And there I stood over a 4.5-foot putt for birdie to win the entire match. All 3 of my playing partners had putts along the same line as my putt, so I had a near-perfect read of what the putt was going to do. It was going to break about a ½ inch from right to left. And with supreme confidence, I walked up, took my practice putt, stood over the putt, pulled the putter back, and missed. I pulled it so bad it didn't even bite part of the cup. It was just a really poor effort. Actually, it was embarrassing. And I'm not kidding you. A couple hours later, I was so upset I nearly had a stomach ache. I love golf. I hated missing that putt. I hated letting down my playing partner who had played so steady. I hated not beating the first place team. We tied that match. I hated not making the putt to win. I wanted to be a winner. I hated not living up to the masculinity of the moment. Missing a really makeable putt to win? You dream of being in pressure situations like that and getting the big hit, making the last-second free throw, draining the putt to be a hero. And last night, I wasn't a hero. I was a goat. A loser. Well, okay, a tire. But you know what they say? Tying is like kissing your sister. It's just not right. I'm sure our opponents felt like they won, but the 2 of us, well, we pretty much felt like we lost. You guys, we must fail. And again, let me frame this for you, because I do think I understand my cultural context. Lord Zeitgeist, as I like to call him. Hey, let me interrupt myself. It's time for a much-needed ADD break. Please, if you're listening and it's Friday, feel free to call in and ask any question on your mind. It's Open Line Friday, but only if it's Friday. That's my weird, dry sense of humor. It's not that we must fail so we can later go write a book about overcoming failure. It's not that we must fail so we can later go record a stirring song about how we know what it means to marinate in emotional brokenness, to come back after a tough loss. There's too much of that cloying emotionalism in pop culture.
Yeah, man, I can relate to your pain. I lost my dog, my wife, my ride, and my brains all in a single week.
Okay, well, you process reality over there, dude. I mean, geez, I just made a 9-hour drive across Washington State. On the way, using Sirius Radio, I listened to a couple hours of Alanis Morissette. What an exhausting experience. It wasn't just that she's a man-hater. It wasn't exhausting just because she whines on and on. It was exhausting as I began to realize somewhere in the middle of hour number 2. It was exhausting that she thought we all cared. She thinks we all want to know every single thought she's ever thought. She doesn't sing about life in the abstract. She sings exclusively about life as Alanis. So self-absorbed, so self-obsessed. It was a long, emotional vomit. And it's not that we must fail so we can go and tweet about it. Because after all, the goal in life is to get retweeted 100,000 times, right? Ugh. No. We must fail if we're to become decent people. We must fail if we are to have any real empathy. We must fail unless we begin to think we are invulnerable. Man, even as I say that, think about how frequently sports stars or pop stars or hip-hop or rock music stars or the super rich or influential politicians, they think that they themselves are above and beyond the law, right? They haven't failed enough. They haven't choked down enough cold meals of humility. They haven't waded through enough acrid-smelling dog dew to temper them, to shape them, to turn them toward decency. And they often don't even realize what an embarrassment they are in the eyes of the rest of us. Dear Jesus, we must fail. We have to fail in order to experience synesthesia.
Wait, okay, smarty pants. What is synesthesia?
Synesthesia is the ability to physically feel what one is watching. When I'm watching Major League Baseball, I can physically feel in my hands and arms and legs what it feels like to hit a line drive. When I'm watching college basketball, because I mostly hate the NBA, it should stand for the Not Basketball Anymore League. When I'm watching college basketball, I know what it's like to shoot a free throw and hit the front of the rim in a brick-like fashion and miss the shot. Synesthesia is the ability to feel the emotional frustration, the sense of oppression, the mood of despair while China is hijacking the island of Hong Kong and its entire population. We must fail. We must fail because it really does help us to appreciate winning. Not just in games, but in business, in relationships, in life. There's even a certain beauty that can come out of learning to lose. And no, I'm not one who puts much stock in the pain of death or in the pain of physical suffering or in prolonged physical disability. But beauty can emerge from our awareness that health, success, and harmony are themselves particularly beautiful because they're not always the outcome. In one of the best books I've read in the last 5 to 7 years, The Coddling of the American Mind, if I could, I'd buy and mail 50 copies of that book to those of you who wanted a copy of it. It is that good, that insightful, that probing. The authors, Greg his name's Greg Lukianoff and Jonathan Haidt. They argue carefully that children need to fail. They document how it is that college campuses today are the effete, ineffectual, monochrome places that they are because millions, and they do mean millions, millions of students have been protected from failing in life. Then, when they show up on campus, a locus where they are now largely in control since they're the paying customers, oh, it so frequently comes down to money, doesn't it? Now they think they're in charge. After all, paying customers should not be challenged to think things they don't want to think. Paying customers, Lord Zeitgeist tells us, shouldn't have to consider alternative perspectives. Dear me, isn't it crazy? The very place given over to considering competing ideas, the university campus, is today the most monochrome place in society. The one place given over to debate, intellectual sparring, to having to consider vantage points outside of one's own comfort zone, is today the least diverse place in society. It's just wild, and it has to do with this issue of failure. Microaggressions? Why, they are caused by the ideas of bad people. And everybody, everybody knows that you should never have to consider the ideas of people you don't like. Microaggressions? Why, they are, Lukianoff and Haidt tell us, microaggressions are little indignities, little words or actions, or little inactions that mature adults have previously ignored for thousands of years. You didn't look me in the eye when we were talking, you hater. That's a microaggression. You did look me in the eye when we were talking, me a black and you a non-black. You hater. Who do you think you are to try a eye-to-eye power play with me? Microaggressions? And here's the utter insanity that not allowing people to suffer or fail while they're growing up will produce. Microaggressions on hundreds of college campusi today. Microaggressions are perceived to be real and true if the listening person interprets them to be so.
That is so funny.
College students are being taught by administrators and parents and by some professors. Those students are being taught that their feelings are always true and just, no matter what everyone else thinks or feels. The authors of The Coddling of the American Mind write that society is teaching people to start with their feelings and then seek to justify those feelings in their encounters with others. So if you feel microaggressed by someone else, you were microaggressed by someone else. Haidt and Lukianoff say, quote, "It is not a good idea to start by assuming the worst about people and reading their actions as uncharitably as possible. This is the distortion known as mind reading, and if done habitually and negatively, it is likely to lead to despair, anxiety, and a network of damaged relationships. Microaggressions are the result of not letting people fail. My good listener, that you are not quietly listening to this UU episode with your body in the lotus position means you, in microaggressive fashion, privately hate me. Well, it probably means that, like me, you're just not that flexible. But after all, you hate me because that's what I feel. My former college student, that you have only sent me one card telling me how much you love my new show? Well, obviously, according to my feelings which are never in error, that proves that you are microaggressively dissing me. If you really loved me, according to how my feelings want to be loved, you'd send me one card a month." Oh, you can see how horrible this is, right? That we've made feelings so important is its own problem, but that we've now told 2 generations of human beings that they are each the most important person in the world is just insidious. We're creating monsters. Holy shnikes. In the name of love and niceness, we're creating self-consumed, thin-skinned, hominid monsters. Oh, we must fail. My PE teacher, Mr. Walt Payne. What a great name for a strict PE teacher, right? He was loving and good, but he was strict. Mr. Payne, he'd been a soldier in World War II. He'd been held captive in a German prison camp. Mr. Payne would order me, Rybarczyk, drop and give me 2-5. 2-5 meant 25 push-ups. But when he did that, he was doing me a favor. He didn't tolerate kids screwing around in his class, and his discipline was, in the long run, good for high school kids. His authority was wiser than my feelings. When my baseball coach said, Eddie, get out there and run 4 hard foul poles. Pitchers had to run from foul pole to foul pole while the rest of the team was taking batting practice. When my coach said that to me, he was teaching me that I had to obey him as the coach. He was coach, not me. His word was more powerful than my feelings. Or hiking in the high Sierras with my father-in-law Dennis. It was often full of pain. I'd get elevation sickness almost every first night that we got up there. I'd get blisters inside my boots. It was uncomfortable sleeping on the hard ground. And my body and my emotions experienced much of those hiking trips as both painful and as initial failure. It hurt. It was exhausting. But learning to endure, learning to press on, learning that I actually could do it, it was so very good for how I was shaped as a person. So it's not a microaggression to say, the most qualified person should get the job. That's what's good for business. That's good for producing excellence. And in the long run, that's good for society. The world loves excellence. And when these thin-skinned, bratty, college-coddled hominids begin real-life careers, they're going to realize how isolated and cloistered and how silly their college time was. Coddled hominids. Failure teaches us to produce with excellence. Failing to get that job, sometimes it's the best thing that can happen to us. And it's not a microaggression to be told, hey bud, you need to start showing up to work on time or we're going to have to let you go. The business owner has the right to insist her employees come to work on time. Things need to get done punctually. Thinking about punctuality or the lack thereof, it reminds me of an odd item I just came across. A guy hears a knock at the door. He opens it up to find a snail. He picks up the snail and throws it across the street. 5 years go by. One day he hears a knock on the door and he opens it to see a snail. The snail says to him, "What the heck was that all about?" Thanks to Mikey's funnies for that one. It's not a microaggression to be thrown across the street. It's a full-blown aggression. Oh, es hora de shout-outs. Okay, good. You got my note on your classroom desktop. You saw that I wrote, "I like you." You saw that I drew 3 boxes on your note. One said, "Check this box if you don't like me." The second box said, check this box if you like me. And the third said, check this box if you like me, like me. And you? You've been listening to the you. You've thought to yourself, I don't particularly like the you, but I do find that he makes me think. then please sign up for my newsletter at uncensoredunprofessor.com. Or please share a Facebook post of mine. On that point, goshness, thank you, Andrew R., for your careful Facebook recommendation of the show. Those blurbs really help me, and obviously they encourage me. So you looked at that handwritten note I put on your desk and said to yourself, yeah, I really do want to help Ed pay for his show. I realize that he has monthly costs that need to be covered. Well, then go to Patreon, go to Patreon and sign up for a gold, frankincense, or myrrh monthly membership. I need and appreciate your tangible love. You guys, we need to fail. So when parents or college administrators or university staffers or professors plant their lips on the backside of students and kiss their butts, teach college students, as Haidt and Lukianoff put it, quote, teach people to see more aggression in ambiguous interactions, take more offense, feel more negative emotions, and avoid questioning their initial interpretations. All of that strikes us as unwise, to say the least, end quote. Those college types are doing students no favors. The students need to fail. Grade inflation isn't helping. People need to fail. Repeated coddling malforms human beings. And no surprise, when you malform human beings, you eventually malform society. Holy moly. Is that not what we're watching? Parents, give your kids some space and let them fail. I didn't say let them get hit by a bus, but let them fail. Later in life, they'll be such better adults for the failing. They forgot their bag lunch? Good. Let them go hungry for a day. They won't forget tomorrow. That happened once to me in elementary school. Once. Leaders, give your crew the space to fail. They'll learn. The good Lord will use failure to mature them, and that space can free them up. That space can be your gift to them as persons. Wow. You know what? This is such a critical topic, I'm going to do a follow-up on it. It's just good spirituality to let people fail, learn from failure, and even not learn from failure, as the case may be. Because biblical spirituality is real, earthy, day in, day out spirituality. And in the end, God cares more about your character and your growth than he cares about your success. Oh, I gotta wind this thing down. Thanks. Thanks for thinking carefully with me. Big evangelical side hugs to everyone. And please, turn your brains on, everybody.